Hello and welcome to another World War Game Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before we get into today's video, I would like to say a huge thank you to Ben White for sending in some awesome pictures of his Imperial Guard army. We have in front of us the second company of the 203rd Cadian Infantry, the Faithful, and we also have the first company of the 65th Cadian Armoured, the Wolves of Cadia. Absolutely love the fluff and effort and background that's been put into these guys. Really like the snowy bases that have been done. Really like that the red flags for both platoons. And that's really cool. So thanks for these pictures in, Ben. Loving the classic Cadian colour scheme. Think you've done a really good job there. If anyone else has got any cool pictures they want me to use for my videos, please post them on my Facebook page, or you can email them to me at mordianglorytv@gmail.com. And don't worry, if you can't remember that, there'll be links and whatnot down in the description below. But without further ado, let's get into today's video. So what I want to talk about today, guys, is I want to do a Know Thy Foe video, and I want to do it for Dark Angels. You see, the old Sons of the Lion, they're actually pretty competitive right now, and they have a list which is doing the rounds at the tournament scene. Now I have faced this both on the competitive scene and off the competitive scene, and both times it was a real tough nut to crack. It's an absolutely fantastic list. Only consists of 33 models, so you're going to come across it because it's actually very easy for a player to pick this list up. It's very affordable, and you can take it into a tournament and be confident. You can be confident that you will do well with this list. So you're likely to see it, and I want to give all my guard commanders a heads up about it. And if you're interested in Dark Angels, then this is definitely a video for you as well, because it's going to tell you how to run one of the more competitive lists. And no need for a coaching service here. We give all the information out for free. But yeah, it's a really strong list. And when you first come across it, the first time I faced it, I was very intimidated and no idea really how to deal with it. But the second time that I came across it, I was able to handle it much better. So I just thought, let's hopefully for my fellow guard players, I can cut out that sort of first game intimidation, and you guys can learn from this video and absolutely smash this Dark Angels list, because it might be tough, but it isn't unbeatable. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the Unkillable Dark Angels Terminator list of doom. Now, as it says on the tin, the main thing of this list is it focuses around basically 2 blocks of 10 almost nigh on unkillable Terminators. Now, how these Terminators work is you take 2 big blocks of 10 of them, and it really, they're just so hard to kill, because you can stack loads of different buffs up on them, and because you're Dark Angels, you can make them Deathwing, and you can make them Inner Circle. Now what this does is, if you take Deathwing Terminators, it means that firstly, you become objective secured, secondly, you become immune to morale, and thirdly, you get permanent transhuman physiology. And what that means is you can only be wounded on a 4, 5 or 6. Now, just to be clear, if you shoot one of these Terminators with a las gun and you're strength 3 and their toughness 4, you're still only wounding them on 5 and 6. You don't magically wound them on 4s. It means that if I hit these Terminators with like a strength 10 weapon like a Demolisher Cannon, then I'm only wounding them on 4s, because they can never be wounded on better than a 4, 5 or 6. So it's really hard. You combine that with the fact that they've got 3 wounds each now, Terminators, easy access to Storm Shields, so they're actually on a 1-up save. So you've got to hit them with something which is at least like AP -2 before you take them off that save. Kick them down to a 3-up. Really, you've got to hit them with something at AP -3 to kick them down to a 4-up. And then also their core and whatnot, so they are eligible to be revived from like apothecaries, who are eligible for a 6-up Feel No Pain. There's just so many buffs you can stack on them. So you take 2 of these big blocks. Now I've seen these blocks of Terminators run in a couple of different ways. I've seen people go for the Assault Terminators. I've seen people go for Relic Terminators. I've also seen people go for Deathwing Terminators, the genuine Deathwing, the genuine article. And the reason why people do that is you can mix and match Deathwing Terminators however you want. Some can have Storm Bolters and Power Fists, some can have Lightning Claws, some can have Storm Shield and Thunderhammer. So I've seen it run where you take 1 specialist blob of shooty ones, 1 specialist blob of combat ones, and I've also seen it run as 2 blobs of take all combat Terminators, combat-y and shooty. But yeah, one way or another, you're going to face 20 Terminators. They're going to be in a circle. They're going to have all the trimming. So that's the first part of the list. The second part of the list is you need to start looking at the characters. So you will find that there will be a character for this list. Now I believe, and I could be wrong here, so please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's a Primaries Ancient. And what the character allows you to do is it allows you to put a -1 to hit buff, not -1 to hit, sorry, -1 damage buff on one of the squads of Terminators. Okay, so it's another buff that you can stack on top of them. So that's really strong. You'll also find that there's going to be an apothecary on bike there as well, and he will be a chief apothecary, so he'll have a 6-up feel no pain bubble, and he will also be able to get up a Terminator turn and heal a Terminator as well for 0 CP because he is a chief apothecary. But remember, it will be a stratagem. They're not paying any points for it, but it will be stratagem. The reason that's important is if you have something like Curves Aquila, when he starts getting people up, you can try and roll to get the extra command points from Curves Aquila. So just remember it is a stratagem, even if it only costs them 0 command points. So that's the sort of additional character you're going to look at here as well. Is you're going to have a Psyker like Ezekiel. And you may have Azrael as well, sort of a 4% vulnerable save. But there'll be a couple of other supporting characters. I've seen them vary wildly between lists. However, what won't vary is the 2 Talon Masters, which you're guaranteed to come across. Now, one of these Talon Masters will be kitted up with the ability, and I believe this is a Warlord trait, the ability to always hit on 2s regardless of modifiers. Okay, so that's really potent because that means he's got twin assault cannon, twin heavy bolts, and he's always hitting on 2s regardless of modifiers. Absolutely lethal. That will shred an infantry squad, maybe an infantry squad and a half, every single turn without even breaking a sweat. So just be aware of that. You're going to have 2 of these. The other one is going to be set up to be objective secured. A bubble of objective secured within 6 inches. So that's really important to be aware of as well. Now, I'm going to come back to these units, these Terminators and the Talon Masters in just a moment. I'll run through the rest of the list, then we'll come back to them. Now, what you're going to come across as sort of the final key component of the list is you're going to come across the fire support. Now, I've seen this run 2 different ways, but there's a common theme in both. You're going to run across at least some attack bikes. Okay, attack bikes are currently some of the most point efficient, just damage dealing units. They've got twin bolters, so they've got good anti-infantry, and they will be taking multi-melters as well. So they've got good anti-tank. So you've got everything you could possibly want on a 5-wound platform. The great thing about attack bikes as well is if they move, because they'll be Raven Wing attack bikes, they get a 5% vulnerable save. If they advance, they'll get a 4+. But if they're near Azrael, they'll just have a 4+ anyway. So you'll find that between the Talon Masters and the attack bikes, the enemy actually has good maneuverability. Now, you may find, with the current hotness, and this may not be relevant if there's any FAQs around the corner against Workshop, but you may find that instead of taking 6 attack bikes, so you'll find that the enemy will either take 6 attack bikes, or they'll take 3, and maybe like a Volkite Contempt or Dreadnought, because they're so popular at the moment. But you're going to have at least 3 attack bikes. More than likely, you're going to come across 6 of them. They're going to be Raven Wing. They're going to be having 5+ and vulnerable saves. They're going to be having a great time. And that's sort of the key to the list. So you've got the Unkillable Terminators, you've got the supporting characters and the absolute shredder characters in the Talon Masters, and then you have the maneuverability and anti-tank firepower that's going to be coming from those attack bikes. Now, why this doesn't sound so bad, right? It's some bikes, it's some Terminators. Doesn't sound so bad, right? So the reason this list is so good is because it allows you to just do so well on the secondaries. So, the first secondary that you will find is always taken with this list. Oh, one other thing to say, sorry. You will also find that the enemy will always take a unit of Terminator bodyguards. because the new bodyguard rule means you can't even target any characters if a character is within range of 3 inches of those bodyguards. Whether they're in front, behind, whether there's 1 or 10 of them, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be some bodyguards, and they're always going to be in range of the characters, and you have to kill those bodyguards to have a chance of getting to the characters. And guess what? They've got permanent transhuman, they've got storm shields, they're tough. So that's the first thing to be. That's the sort of last little bit I should have mentioned. Now, why is this so tough? Secondaries. You will find every single game that your opponent will take while we stand, we fight. I believe the name has changed now, but it essentially means that he's going to select his 2 units of Terminators, and he's going to select one of the Talon Masters. Okay, he's going to select one of the Talon Masters, and they will be the while we stand, we fight character units. Which means if your opponent basically doesn't lose his 20 almost unkillable Terminators, he will get 10 points, and he just has to hide one of the Talon Masters inside that Terminator ring, that Terminator blob, and he's got 15 points. I've yet to see this list not get 15 points for that secondary. Okay, now the next secondary they're going to take is Stubborn Defiance. Now this is the Dark Angels specific one, and this is where if you pick an objective on the field of battle, they're going to pick the one that's in their their board zone, their deployment zone, every single time. You pick one one objective, and if you hold it for the whole game, you'll get 15 points. Now, how this works is, if you begin it on your first command phase and you hold it, you get no points. If you're holding it for 2 command phases in a row, you'll get 2 points. If you're holding it for 3 command phases in a row, you'll get 3 points. And then if you're holding it for 4 command phases in a row, you get 5 points. And if you hold it for 5 command phases in a row, you get another 5 points. So you get 15 points for it in the end. And it really ramps up turn 4, turn 5. Now, again, you might think, oh, that's easy. I'll just take that off them. Well, they're going to have 10 Terminators on that objective. And those Terminators are going to be objective secured. And because they're taking a big 10-man squad, and because of the shape of 9th edition objectives, they're actually able to deploy their Terminators in a big donut, and if they've got all 10 left, they can donut them round the edge of the objective, and you can't actually get within range of that objective and remain an inch away from those Terminators. And also those Terminators are going to be at the back, and you're going to have to deal with the other block of Terminators, which is rampaging around, and all the attack vectors rampaging around. So you're very unlikely to take that objective off them. If you do, it really does cut that secondary, but again, I've not seen my opponent fail to get max on that. So that's something to be aware of. And then the third objective, what you'll tend to find your opponent will do is they will go for raise the banners. Okay, now they might mix it up, but you'll tend to find they're going to go for raise the banners, because all they need to do is raise 2 banners and they'll get 10 points. And so that's a really strong, you're getting 40 out of 45 secondaries there. So that's really, really strong. And the way this list works is it basically works on the principle of, I'm going to just sit on 2 objectives all game, and I'm going to basically get, because I've sat on 2 objectives all game, I'm going to get 40 primary, and I've got my banners, and I'm going to get 40 secondary, I've described, and so I'll get 80 points, then I'll get 10 for painting score, and I'm basically going into every game with 90 points, and my opponent has to do something to stop me from getting 90 points. But I'm starting with that minimum, and my opponent will either have to try and outscore me really hard, or my opponent will have to try and figure some way of stopping me from having the objectives. So that's the list, and that's how it works. Okay, now I have faced this list. There's a couple of disadvantages. I faced this with a hybrid guard list, and I faced it with an all infantry guard list. Now with the hybrid guard list, I lost 80 to 85, and with the infantry guard list, I smashed it. Now, there's a couple of weaknesses. Number one, it has really low board control, really low board presence. Your opponent is basically going to just have everything in a big death blob. So if you can outmaneuver him, you're going to have a great time. Okay, so that's the first thing. It has very low maneuverability. The second thing is that whilst those 10 Terminators are nigh on unkillable, there are at most 10 of them. So it is possible to out-obsec your opponent. He might be donating one objective, but he's probably going to struggle to donate both objectives, his second objective that he wants to try and do that on. And so if you're able to basically keep your opponent down on just one objective all game, you'll beat them on primary. And that's what I did this weekend when I faced this with my pure infantry guard. So my opponent was attempting, because everything rests on this whole, I will hold 2 primary all game, and they don't really have much way of getting a third objective. It's very difficult for them to get that third objective because they've got so low maneuverability. And if you can kill off what little maneuverability they have, you only have to kill 1 Talon Master, which they're going to be zipping around, and 6 attack bikes. And once you've done that, they're not going to risk the other Talon Masters, and everything else is foot slogging and really slow. So the way you beat this list is you dominate on primary objectives. You make sure that your opponent basically only holds 1 objective the whole game. If you can do that, he goes from starting on 90 points to being on 70 points. Much more manageable. Much more manageable. And then for yourself, you will be maxing out primary if you're denying him so much primary. So that means you'll be on 45 plus painting score, you'll be on 55. That means you only have to pick up 16 secondary points to beat that list. So that's how you beat it. You have to basically just outmaneuver it, and just prey on its purely biggest weakness, which is board control. Okay, and that's it's pretty simple. It has quite a big Achilles heel, but not every army is able to take advantage of that. You see, the general prevailing thought, the general prevalence in 9th edition is super elite armies, and what you find is both armies go for this death ball approach, where you just have this nucleus of just absolutely horrendous stuff mashing into each other. And the Dark Angels will win that because they are the most elite. This is the most elite army. They will win that. But if you flip it on its head and go, I'm not going to try and out-elite you, I'm going to go completely the other way and completely out-hoard you and just overwhelm the board with bodies, you'll find that list really struggles then. Because you can just bang on 30 conscripts onto an objective where they've got 10 Terminators and you hold it. And then you just hold all the other objectives. So that's the key to beating it. You will really, I'm going to tell you this now, if you can interrupt the Stubborn Defiance objective, go for it. If you see an opportunity to just move a squad over there and deny them Stubborn Defiance, do it. But you are really, really going to struggle to deny the opponent's secondaries. Okay, you're really going to struggle to do that. If you can tear down the banners, great. If you can, that'll work. But you are going to struggle to deny him secondaries. You will, hopefully, you'll be able to deny banners. If you're dominating on the primary, then that also means the opponent is at best having 1 banner up all game, which means he's only going to get 5 points. So suddenly it comes down to that list is only scoring 65 points because they're only getting 20 for primary and they're only getting 35 for secondary, and then they're only getting 10. They're getting 10 painting score. So that brings it down to 65. So you can see there are ways of working on this, but your opponent basically starts off with a solid 30 secondaries, and it's very difficult for you to deal with that. So yeah, my advice would be focus on the primary. That will inevitably start denying your opponent his third objective, his third secondary, and then you'll be having a great time. So there you go. That's the video. Hopefully you can learn from this. I guarantee you, if you go to a tournament, someone will be running this. You may not encounter it, but I guarantee you, someone will be running that list because it is very, very strong. It's weird that pure infantry guard happens to be its Achilles heel, but it's not something that Dark Angels players are going to be taking into account anytime soon because there's very few absolute mad bastards most of them are concentrated on this channel, you know, between the subscribers and whatnot, that are going to run pure infantry. But that is one way of defeating it. How would Scions deal with this? Well, I actually think Scions would be it'd be quite an interesting game, that one. I feel like Scions could dominate on the primary still, because you'd still be able to, you know, just run some 5-man Scion units on and whatnot, and I think you'd still have a good chance of being able to deny it. But really, really interestingly, in nearly every other competitive matchup, Scions will be the better choice. But in this particular matchup, I actually think pure infantry regular guard is actually much more of an Achilles heel than the Scions. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my Scion army, 2 Scion armies. That's right, guys. I'm going to be going for 2 Scion regiments soon. I'm going to get 2 of my 2 Scion armies up and running, and I'm going to start facing this list, and I'm going to see how Scions perform against it. But my instinct is, and based on what I can see on paper, is that Scions will be playing a bit of a different game. The funny thing with Scions is, when facing this list, especially if you take something like Land and Lions and whatnot, is you would actually probably have the firepower to just kill one of those blocks of Terminators, probably the one that's advancing forward, because to take that second middle ground objective that they need. I think Scions could genuinely, because all your hotshot lasguns are going to be sitting them back on their ass, back onto a 4+ save. And you don't really care about transhuman, permanent transhuman, when you're using hotshot lasguns. So what's really interesting is I think if you went something like 10 Scions with hotshot lasguns, and then you did something like either Killing Zone to get +1 to hit, or you went for full charge, so you get the +1 strength, one or the other, you would start wounding them on 4s. Or, and then if you have 36 shots with, you know, reroll 1s to hit from Land and Lions, and reroll 1s to wound from, you know, Land and Lions, then you're in rapid firing, you're going to get 36 shots, you're going to get 24 hits, you're going to re-roll some of those, you're going to look at probably like about 30 hits, and then you're going to wound them 15 times, and they're going to be on a 4 up, and that's going to be like 7 wounds. That just kills, for 90 points, you just killed 2 Terminators there, and there's a wound left over. Another way you could look at this if you're going to Land and Lions is Gifts of the Mechanicus. And again, 6s are just mortal wounds. Now bear in mind, actually you wouldn't have a wound left over because there would be an apothecary there, so you would kill 2 Terminators. But if you had Gifts of the Mechanicus against Thing, again you're looking at like about 30 hits, and then from the mortal wounds alone, you know, for the mortal wounds alone, you're looking at 5 mortal wounds there. So that just kills a Terminator. Maybe they'll make a 6 up. That just kills a Terminator with change, and then you've still got you've still got the remaining wounds to take another Terminator off there. So you can see that if all your remaining, hotshot lasguns, which they'll have a 4+ save against. So you can see that Scions actually do have the firepower to come in and just wipe out one of these blocks. You know, we're only looking at hotshot lasguns there. We're not looking at like melter, plasma, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think Scions would simply, in a crazy way, would simply have the firepower to just it might take a turn and a half or 2 turns, but I think you just delete one of those blocks. And if you do that, then the enemy is in trouble then, because they're going to struggle to be able to put pressure on you, because they're not going to have one of their blocks Terminators, and they've lost 5 points for every time we fight. So yeah, I think Scions in a funny sort of way you'd be doing a lot of the primary game as well, but I think you would potentially have the firepower and have that as an option, have that a tool in the toolbox to actually deal with just pure firepowering and killing those Terminators. But I'll have to go and find that out from first world experience. Right now, that second bit regarding the Scions, that's just a little bit of theory hammer. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have enjoyed what you've seen here today, please consider heading on over to the Patreon page. There will be a link down in the description below. Massive thank you to all my Patrons. You guys truly are awesome. Without you, I wouldn't be able to go to these events and really be able to keep this channel on the competitive edge. So massive thank you to you guys, and it will be the Patreon money. You know, I'm always super transparent about this. It will be the Patreon money that will be helping me get my Scions, both regiments, up to full fighting strength. So yeah, Thank you huge amount to my Patreon supporters. Thank you to everyone for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.